Good morning. I'm Carmen Emerson. I serve as the affiliated community minister for Buckman Bridge. I'm so happy to be worshiping with you this morning. So there are two little pieces of business as we get started. Later in this service, there's going to come a time where you will need a pen or something to write with. So if you need a pen, if you can just raise your hand and one of our ushers will get one to you. We just want to ask that to make sure that you get it back as you leave, that you make sure leave it there. So just hold up your hand high. And thank you, Chuck, for making sure people get a pen for today. Thanks. And here's the second thing. Our opening words are going to be number 437 in the hymnal. It's a responsive reading. And so here's what I want to say about responsive readings. If we do it as a dirge, I will make us stop and start again. And I will make us stop and start again until we say it with joy, until we say it, oh yes, we get to gather with people of like minds and light hearts and say words about what it means to gather together as Unitarian Universalists. So say the words with as much joy and as the least self-consciousness as you can. I invite you to model that for your neighbors. And then also I want to let you know there's going to be a slight word change in here. Instead of brothers and sisters, I'm going to say beloved siblings, so that we really honor our LGBTQIA commitments. So don't let that throw you off. All right, you ready? Number 437, if you guys will respond with the italicized part. Let us worship with our eyes and ears and fingertips.
Let us love the world through heart and mind and body.
Way to go, Elizabeth. Thank you. We feed our eyes upon the mystery and revelation in the faces of our beloved siblings.
We seek to know the wistfulness of the very young and the very old, and the wistfulness of people in all times of life.
We seek to understand the shyness behind arrogance, the fear behind pride, the tenderness behind clumsy strength, the anguish behind cruelty.
All life flows into the great common life if we will only open our eyes to our enemies.
Let us worship not in bowing down, not with closed eyes and stopped ears.
Let us worship with the opening of all the windows of our beings, with the full outstretching of our spirits.
Life comes with singing and laughter, with tears and confiding, with a rising wave too great to be held in the mind and heart and body to those who have fallen in love with life. Let us worship and let us learn to love. Well done, thank you.
Good morning, and welcome. My name is Elizabeth DeCoux, and it's my privilege to serve as your worship leader this morning. If you are new to this congregation or to our faith, you will find that we ask you to know us not by our creeds, but by our deeds. I especially want to welcome any guests who are here today. Be sure to stop by our welcome table back at the entryway and pick up some information about our church and our denomination and get a name tag so we can get to know you by name. If you are interested in finding out more about our church and our denomination, our membership chair will be happy to talk with you, and that is Julie Smithers back there at the table, back at the welcome table. She can also tell you about the classes we offer called Learn About Us classes. If you have a question, here's what to do. You'll notice that almost everybody is wearing a name tag. If you have a question, look for somebody who has a yellow sticker on their name tag with the words "New, Ask Me." That person will be glad to answer any questions that you have. If you are ready to jump in and help, we're always looking for volunteers, and you will find sign-up sheets at the back of the sanctuary. We cordially invite our guests, along with members of the congregation, to join us in the back after the service for snacks, fair trade coffee, and fellowship. I hope to see you there. I have a request that everyone please silence their electronic devices. As Chris Kynes comes forward to light our chalice, please hear these words of Reverend Sarah Lammert. The element of fire represents passion, veracity, authenticity, and vitality. If the chalice is the supporting structure of Unitarian Universalism, then we are the flame. We are the flame, fanned strong by our passion for freedom, our yearning for truth-telling, our daring to be authentic with one another, and the vitality we sustain in our meeting together. In all of this, there is love. We are so happy to welcome the flute duo Étoiles, Binaires, consisting of Angela Muller and Heather Davidson, presenting Fluty Tales. next to each other are put into words in our Congregational covenant. You will find those words in the order of service. Please join me in reciting our Congregational covenant. We covenant to engage one another with honesty, kindness, and respect, to value diversity, seek understanding of our differences, and practice gracious accountability with care, love, and empathy. We make these promises to those who are here and those yet to come, so that we may be a safe, welcoming, and beloved community of acceptance, learning, and transformation. Please rise in body or spirit for our call to worship. You'll find the words in the order of service.
I'm happy to share our time for all ages this morning and invite the children. Just hang out with your parents, your family. And again, this is time for all ages, so if you are inspired to answer a question I might ask in a few minutes, know that you're welcome to do that, no matter what your age. Once upon a time, there was a teacher who was known far and wide as one who had mastered all the great disciplines of a spiritual seeker. She wandered the country, and whenever people heard she was near, they traveled to seek her wisdom and her guidance. So first for the kids, can you tell me about the words discipline? Do you know what discipline means? Someone tell me. You sound super excited about it. Oh, so that's one way, thank you, that's one way of thinking about discipline. Another way of thinking about discipline is to practice something until you master it and get really good at it. Or different ways of considering information is also known as a discipline. So lots of different ways to think about words. What about wisdom? What does the word wisdom mean to you? Knowledge and experience, understanding. Knowing better, so you don't get disciplined, right? So, okay. All right, and then what about, I wondered for the younger people among us, so in the story so far, this wise teacher, people turn to her for guidance, and so I wonder for the young people among us, who do you turn to for guidance? Who are the people you trust who have wisdom and knowledge that you think could be helpful in your life? Who do you trust for guidance? Your dad? Your parents? That's nice. Anybody else? The librarian? God bless the librarians. Freedom fighters. Teachers? Friends? Yes, for sure, friends. So we'll go on with this story. Great friends. Somebody said they're good friends. So she would travel and people would meet her. Great teacher, one would say, I wish to get closer to God. By what path do you travel now? She would ask, and they would say, I study the scriptures, diligently applying myself day and night to unlocking their mysteries. Then she said, you should put down your books and walk in the woods, thinking nothing, but listening deeply. Another would say, I do good to every person I meet, doing all that I can to serve their needs. Then for a time, the teacher would say, consider yourself well met and strive to serve your own needs as you have so well served other people. One day, the teacher noticed someone in the back of the crowd, someone not pushing their way forward to her as most of the others did. She went to that person. "What is it I can do for you?" she asked. "I do not know," he replied. "I feel in need of something, but I do not believe in God, and I have nothing you could call a practice." "When do you feel most alive?" the teacher asked. "When I am playing with my children," the man said without hesitation. "Then play with your children," the teacher said, "and you will find what you seek." What do you think of the teacher's advice? Thank you for listening this morning.
Reverend Carmen Emerson is the affiliated community minister in covenant with BBUUC. Her work as an ordained UU minister in full fellowship happens within the wider Jacksonville community as the lead chaplain for Baptist Medical Center, Nassau. Welcome, Reverend Carmen.
Good morning, friends. I'm so happy to be here worshiping with you this morning for two reasons. It means that I get to be here worshiping with you this morning, and also that I did not have a 24-hour on-call shift last night, so that's a good thing. So I am launching a sermon series today in conjunction with the worship committee. We're calling it the Second Sunday, Spirit and Practice, and this is going to be a series about spiritual practice that help us deepen and develop our spirituality, our ethics, our faith, and our identity as Unitarian Universalists. As I often say to you when in this pulpit, pretty much guaranteed I'm going to say it when I'm in your pulpit, Unitarian Universalism can often be misunderstood as an anything-goes religion with no expectations and no accountability. If someone has said to you, "Hey, come be a UU, you can just believe whatever you want to believe," then you have been misled, and I am sorry about that. A more truthful invitation would be, come be a Unitarian Universalist with us, where each one of us is encouraged to find a personally meaningful path and to respectfully share what we have learned and are learning along the way within a community of fellow seekers with whom we share a set core of values. Come be a Unitarian Universalist where we believe what we must and engage together in covenant, in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. So what does that mean to believe what we must? It means that we are not and cannot be compelled to believe something that is simply unbelievable to us. And no one else gets to tell you what that is. Every single person knows within what that is. There are those among us who have left other religious traditions because we simply could not believe the dogma and doctrine of those traditions, nor could we abide the oppressive practices that we witnessed. As the saying goes, if your religion teaches you to hate and oppress other people in the name of God, it may be time to find another religion. UUs do not have doctrine or dogma. We are covenantal, and we have shared core values. Those are most commonly expressed as our principles and reverence for our sources, and I know those are printed in this morning's order of service. We absolutely do not agree about everything, and there are tensions within our denomination as there are in every thinking, evolving religious tradition. That is inherent to a non-dogmatic, non-doctrinal tradition. But still, we cannot believe anything. And that becomes most important, most essential to understand in terms of the way that we treat one another. Again, if defending your beliefs translates into treating others disrespectfully, dismissively, indifferently, or compulsively, and you do not yet have the emotional fortitude or spiritual maturity to dwell in covenant with others, even with those with whom you may disagree, Unitarian Universalism may be just exactly the right religion for you, and Buckman Bridge just exactly the right church for you to help you grow in that kind of emotional maturity and spiritual maturity and emotional fortitude. Our deepest hopes are that our faith and our church will be the faith for you and the church for you. This is why exploring spiritual practices together is important. As I mentioned earlier, engaging in spiritual practice helps us deepen our understanding of Unitarian Universalist theology. It helps us to understand and articulate our identity as Unitarian Universalists. So think about this for just a minute. If someone asks you, what does it mean to you to be a Unitarian Universalist? How do you answer them? Do you have just a little moment of panic? What am I going to say? It's really hard to answer because we are covenantal and not dogmatic or doctrinal or creedal, and that can be a hard question. What does it mean to you to be a UU? That can be a hard question to answer. I get asked this probably 25 times a week at the hospital. Now, honey, where's your church? And what religion are you? And are you a Bible Christian? People have a lot of expectations about what it means to be a religious person. And so being able to articulate what it means to you in a respectful way is really a sign and a reflection of being UU and of having a certain spiritual maturity and emotional identity. So I say, I have a big theological tent, ma'am, or sir, I have a big theological tent. So, and then let's talk about you, not me. So, my hope about this sermon series is that exploring these spiritual practices together will help us answer this question with love for our faith and confidence in our congregation without resorting to, come believe whatever you want to, because really and truly that is simply a hollow and unsustainable expectation for a lifelong journey of connecting with the sacred ground of being. Instead of defaulting to whatever, let us learn to boldly say, this is what it means to me to be a Unitarian Universalist in this place, in this time, in this season of our lives and in our nation. This is what it means to me to connect to the sacred as I understand the sacred to be, as I understand myself to be as an individual, and as I understand myself to be as part of an evolving, covenantal, beloved community. The spiritual practices we'll be exploring together are intended to support our spiritual development, our ethical development, our faith development, and our UU identity. To begin building our foundation for this Spirit and Practice series, let's consider these 4 developmental areas. Spiritual development is about our spirituality, simply defined as our relationship to the Spirit of life, that Spirit of life that we sing about every Sunday, the Spirit of life we just sang about together. My colleague, the Reverend Sarah Gibb-Millspaugh, writes that our spirituality is our deep, reflective, and expressed response to the awe, wonder, joy, pain, and grief of being alive. It's a way that we integrate our beliefs and our values with everyday life. Ethical development is about our moral values and our ability to act on those values, overcoming oppressions and despair as we realize and teach our children, because they are watching us, they are listening to us, they are learning from us. So we act on our values, overcoming oppression and despair. We teach our children that we are moral agents capable of making a difference in the lives of other people, challenging structures of social and political oppression, and promoting health and well-being of the planet and all who dwell here as interdependent kin. Faith development is about developing as meaning makers who practice our faith in relationship with others that we support and are supported by, as we seek and relate to that which is of ultimate meaning and value. Of ultimate meaning and value. Developing our UU identity goes much deeper than just calling ourselves a UU. To develop and sustain your UU identity means that you and we, even as individuals of religious diversity, believe ourselves strengthened by covenant and connection with other people. I may have said this to you before, and I've said it to, I know, a couple of my friends here in the church. It is really easy to be a UU when you are a congregation of one. Like, nobody challenges you, nobody rubs you the wrong way, nobody tests your capacity to be in covenantal relationship. Being a UU and a congregation of one is super easy, but it is by being in covenant and connecting with other people that we get that spiritual depth and wisdom and maturity. As my colleague Sarah Gibb-Millspaugh writes, we know we are Unitarian Universalist when the values, stories, symbols, and practices of Unitarian Universalism sustain our holy hungers. When our values sustain our holy hungers. I love that phrase. It captures that sense of yearning for deep connection that each one of us has felt, that perhaps brought you through the door of this congregation recently or decades ago. If you have been so hungry, I'm so glad you're here. I'm glad for the chance to engage in sustaining spiritual practices with you. So, in your order of service today, you got a handout. We're going to be talking about 8 spiritual practices. Everybody got one of these in your order of service, right? This little grid. We're going to be talking about personal and communal practices, spiritual partnerships, mind, body, and soul practices, life practices, and justice practices. During each one of these second Sunday services, we'll be doing a little bit of a deeper dive into these respective practices. Stay tuned, because one of them even involves eating chocolate during the service. So stay tuned. But in today's worship time together, in preparation for what is to come, I invite us to consider the word spirituality together. You've heard me offer a couple different definitions so far. I've introduced the idea of this series as a way to develop our spirituality, our ethics, our faith, and our UU identity. And I would like to hear what you understand spirituality to be. So again, you have this insert. On one side, you have the different practices and actually even the dates that we're going to be offering these. And then the other side has our questions for consideration today. To help feed our holy hungers, let us consider the food for thought that's printed at the bottom of this back page. So here are the questions. What does spiritual mean to me? What makes a practice spiritual and not just emotional or mental? What are some of the things that make me come most alive? And maybe that reverberates from our Time for All Ages this morning. And is doing these things a spiritual practice? How so, or why not? And our food for thought comes from two of my favorite theologians, Howard Thurman and Frederick Buechner. Thurman says, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And then Buechner writes, the place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hungers meet. So I'm going to hold silence for just about 2 or 3 minutes as you think about the questions, the quotes, what does spiritual mean to you, what makes a practice emotional or mental. Everybody should have a pen by now so you can jot down some notes. There's going to be no test, but just voluntarily in about 3 minutes, I'll ask if it's something came up for you that you would like to share with other people. And don't worry, I'll repeat it from the pulpit so everyone can hear it, okay? So we're just going to hold silence as you think about these questions. As we come back together, I wonder if anyone has something that came up for you that you just would love to share with the rest of us here. Just wave. Everybody's shy. Carol. So Carol said what spiritual means to her is obeying her conscience. Thank you. I like the brevity of it. Anyone else have any of these questions or a thought on the quotes that you would like to share? Liz.
What makes me come most alive? Well, I had several things, but especially like the time I spent walking in nature and with trees and not talking or being talked.
So Liz responded to the question, what are some of the things that make me come most alive? And said she has multiple answers or multiple thoughts about that question, but what came up for her strongest today was walking in nature or walking quietly when she is not engaged in conversation with someone, where you can just have some solitude. Is that a fair assessment of what you said?
Appreciate what I'm wearing.
Appreciate where you are in the moment. Okay. That's definitely a spiritual practice. Any final thought? John.
Pretty much with Liz on this one. But I take my dogs to the Philly Tower twice a day. We walk on a 2-mile nature run, and that's my meditation.
I'm absolutely, as you know, in agreement with you. So John said he walks his dogs twice a day around a 2-mile nature walk. Yeah, you know. I also think that falling down and rolling on the floor with my dog and kissing her, even if I have lip gloss on, that is a spiritual practice. I do it every morning, and I leave for work, and I say to Jim, don't kiss the dog with the lip gloss on. It's like a ritual, but I can't help it. You do what makes you happy. When are you most alive? Linda, did you have something to share?
Yeah, I was just going to say, for me, spiritual is a feeling of really deep connection from my heart and my soul. It's hard to define sometimes, to the divine in the world and in other people, and other animals, and other creatures. For me, spiritual is a practice is spiritual when it has a reverence for the moment or action that is felt very deeply. And for me, the things that make me feel most alive are deep conversations with friends and loved ones, and quiet times, and joy and sorrow.
Mm-hmm. They're woven fine. So yes, and so Lee, you'll be the last one. I just want to repeat what Linda said before we move on. So the highlights that I heard of what you said, Linda, are depth, reverence, and connection with other people and other moments. And I hope that you guys will follow up with Linda and hear the whole thing that you said. I'm sorry that we didn't have you mic'd, but that was beautiful. And I saw a lot of people shaking their heads like, oh yeah, that's meaningful to me too. So, okay. And then Lee, you'll close us out.
What does spiritual mean to me is mindfulness of how to live and give in the world around me.
So Lee says mindfulness and how to live and give in the world around her is what spirituality means to her. Thank you all. I knew it would take a second for us to get a little warmed up and share, but thank you for doing that. And that might be a preview of the kind of things to come. So hopefully that won't make you stay away from Second Sundays, but we'll just give you a heads up that there will be a possibility that if you are so moved, you might have a chance to share things. So as we prepare to move into our closing hymn, I want to offer my thanks for your interest, your attention, and of course, your participation. I encourage you to take these inserts with you today as prompts for reflection and journaling, and hopefully deep conversations with people you trust, people who have guidance or wisdom for you, people you feel safe to be vulnerable with. By the end of our Second Sunday Spirit and Practice series, you will have assembled quite a collection of notes and reflections to support your spirit and practice journey and your own spiritual, ethical, faith, and new identity continued development. So as I close, my fellow Brene Brown lovers may recognize what she says about spirituality. Spirituality is recognizing and celebrating that we are all inextricably connected to each other by a power greater than all of us, and that our connection to that power and to one another is grounded in love and compassion. Practicing spirituality brings a sense of perspective, meaning, and purpose to our living. So with hope and faith in our inextricable connections, with hope and faith in the love, compassion, perspective, meaning, and purpose that we discover here as fellow seekers creating and sustaining our covenantal community, bending the moral art towards justice, and transforming our will by love. Would you please rise in body or in spirit as we join our voices together in singing our closing hymn number 331? And then please remember to stay standing as we extinguish our chalice. As Chris Kynes comes forward to extinguish our flames,
please hear these words of Maggie Lovins. We extinguish this flame, but not its meaning and mission in our hearts. Our time together has come to an end. Go in peace, be of service to one another, and may you move through the world in love for all your days. Amen and blessed be.